What's good, friends list, episode 24 of the Gamecast Gamecast, coming at you, and we've got a jam-packed show for you with tons of news to cover. We now potentially know the supposed specs for both of Xbox Project Scarlett's next-gen systems, Anaconda and Lockhart, and let's just say, the jump is pretty hefty. Will these potential specs lead to another tech arms race with Sony and the PlayStation 5, or should the focus remain on where it counts, the games? Plus, it's official, Resident Evil 3 Remake is confirmed, and it's only mere months away. We've got it covered for you, along with how it all ties into Capcom's previously announced Resident Evil title, Project Resistance. Also, it looks as though Sony's smash hit baseball sim, MLB The Show, is no longer going to be an exclusive to the PlayStation family of systems, and baseball fans who own an Xbox should have a lot to be excited about. We'll give you all the details regarding the new deal between the MLB, its Players Association, and Sony, and much more on a brand new episode of the Game Pass Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Budget.
Stop! You violated the law.
I'm fucking rolling in here just 3 sheets to the wind. Isn't that the saying? I think
3 sheets to the wind.
Isn't that a saying?
I've never heard of that.
I don't know.
It sounds like plausible.
Yeah,
That
let's
sounds
see.
like Boggle.
Yeah, here we go.
Kinda.
What does? Yeah. Okay, all right. Maybe it's 2 sheets to the wind because when I typed in 3 sheets to the wind on Google, it has the dictionary that pops up 2 in parentheses or 3 sheets to the wind. and here's what the informal definition is. All it is drunk. And with that being said, welcome back to another episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, including news, rumors, and conversations around them video games, because guess what? They are damn cool. I am your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travis on most internet platforms. New episodes of the show drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get those, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast to stay up to date with everything regarding the show and video games alike. As always, joining me, my partners in crime, Mike Peapack and Adam Marshy Marsh. Did you guys like that intro? You weren't.
That was pretty good.
You weren't thinking I was going to go right into it. Adam, kick us off here, man. What's good? What's going on? And what have you been playing lately?
I'm doing pretty good, Travis. Lately, I've been getting back into Disco Elysium. I was off the wagon for a little while, but I'm finally back on it after finishing most of Pokemon. And what else was I playing? Pathologic?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so back into Disco Elysium. Still really enjoying it. I remembered why I stopped playing in the first place. It's because there is a glitch that I reached that kind of stopped my forward progress dead in its tracks, but I looked up a fix for that, just kind of had to hack my save file a little bit.
Yeah.
And we're back in business. I'm really still enjoying it so far.
I'm very much. I'll be honest. That's one of those games that I keep thinking about. Like, okay, because I'm gonna have I work like a dog next week because we're hosting the D1 National Championship for volleyball. So I'm gonna work like 80 hours next week. But then after that, for from the 22nd until I think we have a game the 2nd. I'm off. So I have all this time off, which is fucking awesome. But I'm like, man, that's a game I really like. That's a perfect game to kind of slide in there and take that. But then I keep thinking, I'm like, just hold out a little bit longer till it comes out on console, because then I can take it. It being an RPG, any kind of RPG in general, for me is so much. At least with what's going on with my life right now, most nights going over to my fiance's and staying, it's just much easier to play it on a console where I can take my save file with me compared to my PC, even though I probably would want to play it on PC, but whatever. So, Disco Elysium, anything else besides that?
A little bit of Forager I just picked up. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's kind of an unfolding crafting survival game in the vein of Minecraft or Stardew Valley. Just, something to fill time. It's not as deep.
Mm-hmm.
but enjoying that.
And just one more thing on Disco Elysium. I know we kind of talked about this on the last episode for our Game Awards predictions, but now that you've kind of been able to sink even more time into it, does it really kind of, like, would this be your game of the year? Like, if you're, let's say, like I said, we've said before, we're going to come back, we're going to do a full game of the year show on, different categories of our games that we're going to pick, but I mean, do you think if more people would have played this game, or would have came out on a, cross-platform release where it's not just, I don't want to say sanctioned off the PC, but where right now its home is on PC and console isn't coming till 2020, do you think it would be in more Game of the Year contention at like a big show like the Game Awards?
Quite possibly, and like
because everyone I've ever heard talk about this game is like it's not one of those games where it's like, oh, do you own a PlayStation 4? Oh, do you own an Xbox? You need to play God of War, or you need to play Red Dead Redemption, or something. It's not that, but like, it seems like people who are truly enthusiasts for gaming, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are an enthusiast for gaming. You probably play a lot of games. It probably speaks to you because of all the little minutia within the game is so much. It seems like the mold of modern dialogue meshed with old school RPG mechanics. At least that's what I'm getting from it. But
I think it would be a contender for Game of the Year. Mm-hmm. Even so, I think a lot of people are going to consider it their Game of the Year, even if it doesn't make it to like big shows. Mm-hmm. People are going to be talking about this one for years to come, I believe.
Nice. Mike.
Yes. I'm in protest. I'm protesting the show.
You're protesting the show.
Yeah, you were late with the run of show and late to the recording, so I don't want to hear it.
Did you write the run of show?
No.
Did you edit the show?
Hell no.
Okay, well then, I wouldn't worry about it.
Fair.
I'm just fucking busting. I don't give a fuck. Mike, what's good? What's going on? And I want you to tell me, since you've been kind of getting pretty sweaty with it outside of, you being in finals right now and everything like that, tell me, how are you enjoying Reach on PC, my man?
How do you mean I'm getting sweaty?
You're investing a lot of time into it. I'm saying
you're accusing me of that right now?
I've seen your playtime. You're saying like, man, I've been investing a lot of time into this. I'm just taking your words.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. It's been really exciting to play the game in unlimited frames, essentially. I mean, my computer doesn't get more than 180 frames on most maps, but just getting to play the game in such a high rate of frames per second has really changed like the way I look at the game. It's a lot more enjoyable. It's a lot easier to play when you get such high frames on my 144 hertz monitor. I pretty much played exclusively hardcore, but I have mixed it up with some Invasion with you guys.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
and I've had a lot of fun with that. I haven't played the campaign yet, but that's just because if I'm not playing if I'm not playing Halo, I'm playing AoE, and if I'm not playing either one of those two, I've been playing Smite with my brother. So, I've really just been enjoying mixing it up. But yeah, I mean, Halo's about everything you could have wanted. The aim assist with controller might be a little bit much, but I mean, it was created to be played on controller, so I don't know.
Yeah,
what you're supposed to do about that. But
I think the best telling sign right now to how well the Reach release is doing, especially one being on PC, and how well it's being received on console as well, but mostly because of it being on PC and PC gaming having such this resurgence, really this last like console generation, if you want to say like that time frame. The best is when I got into a game before and somebody on voice chat told me that, sorry, like he was like away, and like I was kind of getting pissed because we were down by like 15 and this dude's like AFK, and he comes back, and like I did say, I was like, okay, I mean, if you're gonna be AFK, at least put AFK like something so we know. And he was like, sorry, just got done fucking your mother. And I'll be honest, I smiled. I was like,
We back.
Halo's back, baby.
There's been a lot of screaming at each other in the in-game mic too, in hardcore. So teammates especially screaming at each other, and after the game screaming. So yeah, I mean it's
like old times.
definitely like old times, and it definitely feels pretty good to play the game again. And seeing all the old OGs playing the hardcore version of the game, it's just been enjoyable.
Yeah, and shout out to Nated, man. Did you see that he hit, what was it? How many subs he hit?
I don't know. He has 1,000 viewers right now as we speak about it. So
hold on,
I think he has like 10,000 subs, maybe.
Yeah, it's something. I want to pull that up actually real quick, because it was wild what he hit. That I was like, holy shit! Like, and that's one dude who just straight up deserves it. I mean, he's been grinding Halo nonstop since like through the ups and downs. Yeah, here it is. Brett Nated. We ended up hitting over 10k subs on Twitch. Probably not going to maintain this, but the fact that we even touched this milestone only playing Halo the past month has been an incredible achievement. Thank you so much for all the support. Looking forward to the future, Heart. But that's just one of those dudes who's been so committed to Halo still, no matter what. Has never really... He's played other things, sure, but has always gone back to the well with Halo and always been kind of pushing for Halo still as that Halo Pro circuit is starting to finally, it's always had a decent base, but it's just continued to struggle to get that main reach again. But now, no pun intended, but now, I mean, really, it's looking good, man. I don't want to get ahead of myself, obviously, but man, I think Halo's in a pretty damn good spot right now, and that's the first time you could say that in a long time.
Yeah, the game's enjoyable. There's a lot of people playing it. Obviously, some of the bigger Twitch personalities have, stopped playing because they feel like the controller is so overpowered. But it's not only is it easier for me to shoot you with my controller, but I've played the game for so much that even if I was playing on mouse and keyboard, I would still dump on half the people, like Summit and them. Dude, I've just been playing the game forever. I know how to play the game. Part of the issue is you don't know how to play the game.
Right.
You can shoot guns, you can shoot your weapon, which is 30% of playing Halo. 70% is the rest of it. Positioning, pushing objectives, when to pull the objective, where to be, when to die, when to live. All those things are always being calculated in my brain while I play on split-second decisions where there's people that haven't really played the game at a high level for as long as I have. They just don't have that. They don't have that formula in their brain that's telling them to do certain things at certain times.
Yeah.
And, us playing on controller isn't exacerbating that issue. It's just you don't understand how to play the game. And then the fact that it's easier for us to shoot you with the controller does obviously create a little bit more of an issue for those players that are newer and trying to get into it. But, I mean, they had, I can't believe that some of these popular streamers were thinking they were going to get on to Reach and just start scraping pros right off the rip with a mouse and keyboard. Bro, that was never going to happen.
Yeah, that wouldn't.
For people that have watched the game that haven't watched Halo in a long time because the popular streamers started playing it, if you're still tuning in, most of the cream has rise to the top. Most of the players that are at the top of the scene are high levels in hardcore now. I'm only a 28. I play solo queue, and it's a different game. When I play with people that I know and I play with people, we win every game by a ton because we play a different game than people do. But when you're solo queuing, you're not playing the same game that the top level players are playing. It's much like League of Legends in that fact. And it dawned on me recently when I was playing with these PC players that are brand new that you're completely playing a different game than other people are, especially when you're playing with newer players that have no clue what's going on. So it's just like playing against pros in League of Legends and acting like you're going to be able to compete with that. You're just not. The mechanics aren't there for you, first and foremost, and second off, just the awareness and time spent, the raw time spent in the game, just isn't there for you. So I imagine that they'll probably release a patch that will adjust the aim assist with controllers. I don't know that it's going to be enough to completely mitigate players who play controller from being better than people in mouse and keyboard. I'm just interested to see where they're going to go with the tournaments, if we're going to play on mouse and keyboard or not. Because if I'm playing on controller all this time and they switch to mouse and keyboard for tournaments, I'm going to be a little pissed off because they could have just told us that already. You should have just told us, day one, hey, by the way, all you guys using controller, you're not going to be able to in tournaments. Okay, fine, I'll spend all my time playing mouse and keyboard. I don't care. But the fact that they've just been quiet on it for so long, if they go out and say, hey, it's going to be on mouse and keyboard, by the way, I'm going to be a little bit pissed because it's come on, dude. You couldn't have told me this on release. I could have been playing this whole time.
Yeah, and I mean, like you're saying, at least if you knew with ample time or heading into the release of Reach, just saying, hey, this is what our pro team has thought, how we feel, what our statistics have shown. We're going to go with mouse and keyboard, or even after, the first or second day where it's like, okay, we've seen the statistical analysis, like, we think the mouse and keyboard is going to be the best for the pro circuit, for all grassroots tournaments, yada yada. Like, so I think they just need to. I think they're just not. I just don't think 343 is used to being in this position. I mean, verbatim, that they're, I think, a little thrown off, because it really, in all honesty, I mean, there've been some small, mostly minor, small issues that have popped up, but realistically, their launch was tremendous. Like, people were able to get, people were able to get in games. People had good connections. Everything felt good. Everything was crisp. Like, for the most part, I'm sure there are spot situations that come up with everybody because nothing is perfect, but in 2019, it's very rare that you launch a multiplayer game, especially on PC, where it's all but flawless for the most part. Where stuff just fucking works.
It's pretty remarkable considering their first release of Master Chief Collection, what a disaster it was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, they only released one game, so it wasn't as big of a deal as the original Master Chief Collection. But I don't see the game going to mouse and keyboard only because a lot of the maps in the competitive scene required like crouch jumps to do certain movements on the map. And I don't know how easy it is to crouch jump on mouse and keyboard. I know you can't crouch and move at all on mouse and keyboard, which is how it is designed with a controller, but your movement inputs are more finite with a controller versus a keyboard with a joystick.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't notice the fact that you can't move, like, unless you're full strafe and try to crouch, then your guy won't crouch. You notice it, but it's really easy to get your guy to stop with a joystick, and I think the crouch jumps are going to be an issue, and I don't know how they're going to handle that if they go to mouse and keyboard only, unless it's just something that they're going to make you get used to. Which again, fine, but let us know ample time before the tournament, because DreamHack at Anaheim's happening in February, and then there's a PAX East in March in Boston, and if they're going to have a tournament in one of those two things, which I'm having a hunch that they are, it would be really nice to know that I have to get a fucking plane ticket to Anaheim like now versus January 13th. Oh, hey, by the way, there's a tournament in a month. Okay, thanks. Like, but, and oh, by the way, it's going to be on mouse and keyboard only. Like, dude, come on. Like, this is the issue that pro players in the scene and in the competitive scene have wanted you to remedy. Like, give us ample time to plan for these tournaments. Give us a roadmap for what we're going to do, like the old school MLG days. We knew we were going to Columbus in June. We knew Raleigh was next, Orlando was next, and then Dallas would open the season in April, and then the national championships would be in Vegas or somewhere of the like, and there'd be a tournament in California. Like, we just knew that was the schedule every year. They let us know, and people showed up.
Yeah.
And that's what 343 needs to do. I don't care how cheap it is for you to plan last minute events, because there's a ballroom open somewhere and there's a hotel wing open that you can get a block of rooms. I need to know where I'm going ahead of time.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they're able to do that and what they're going to do. But basically the ball's in their court. The player base showed up and shut them up, because I know the PC numbers are through the roof, and I know there's still a ton of people playing on Xbox that aren't on PC. So if the ball's in their court, whatever they want to do. Tashi did tweet out about like the night before the release that the grassroots program was going to be primarily on PC. So we did get that information, but if the ball's in their court, they need to give us something for us to continue playing, because if they don't, and in a soon enough time frame, all these players that have come back to the game that want to play it competitively are going to just move on to whatever else they moved on to. Snipedown has pretty much only played Halo, but he was playing Apex, but he's pretty much only been playing Halo again, and he's been bringing in 1,000 viewers every time he streams. Nate is running at 1,000 concurrent. Ninja ran a few things on his platform over at Mixer. Like, there's some big numbers coming to Halo viewership again, and if you don't give them something to latch onto, those viewers are going to go back to whatever the hell they were watching. Right. It's going to happen fast, and you're going to lose your chance. They should have had something in the works, so when the release exploded like this, they were just said, oh, hey, by the way, this is our next tournament, get ready. But again, dropping the ball in their esports side of things. So we'll see what HCS does. We'll see what the grassroots do, because I know UGC, for instance, had all consoles, and Tashi tweeted that he wants them to go to PC, so that's a lot of investment for a smaller tournament organizer like UGC, unless they're going to keep running theirs on Xbox. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be interested to see how this kind of just pans out, just because, like we were saying, I think the support really has kind of thrown 343 off a bit. So I'm curious to see how they react to all of this, and like you said, moving into the pro circuit and all the grassroots tournaments and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust. On my end, there's one game that I've been playing with my fiance that I want to wait till next week to talk about because we're not done yet. But I really would like to talk about it and get Adam's opinion specifically. But I definitely want to wait to talk about that. But outside of that, been playing through Control. I'm trying to finish it before Game Awards, which we're recording the Tuesday before the Game Awards. So hopefully I'll have that wrapped up within the next, couple days or so. Loving it. Definitely still great. If Fallen Order wouldn't have came out this year, I'd say it has the best combat mechanics. Hands down, hard stop. But, the weight of the physics that you're able to do with your pushing powers, your levitate, all different things, like, it's a very weighty combat that just feels tight and precise and fluid at the same time with your movement. So it's awesome. Outside of that too, I've had the itch recently. I've been playing MCC with Mike and Adam, of course, but I've had the itch to play some CSGO. I've been kind of playing that again. It's just one of those like you said, Mike. It's the everlasting crack pipe. You go on it and I'll just play a game, and you end up playing for 5 hours. Like it's just,
it sneaks up on you.
It sneaks up on you because it's just such a it's easy to understand but hard to master. It's just one.
And
of those
I
games.
sneaks up on you when you were playing deathmatch that one day and joined your lobby.
You were. Once I saw you pop up, I was like, Marshy, that bastard. So, but next week I'll have a little more to talk about because I think there's a bigger discussion around it that I would like to have. But moving into the show, though, before we get into it's a jam-packed news day. We're going to be focusing on, there's tons of news stories that kind of got bottled up that were released right after Thanksgiving. So we got a lot of news to go over, so it'll be a news-heavy show. But before we get into that, do a little housekeeping. It's our free game giveaway. Do you like free games? Of course you do, unless you're just some kind of psychotic idiot, I guess. If you don't want free games, then stop listening, I guess. But anyways, but we will give you a brand new free game of your choice if you are the lucky listener who does win. And all you have to do is the following. Follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Retweet the pinned tweet on our Twitter profile. And make sure you're listening to the show to know if you've won. That's it. Once we hit our follower goal, we will pull a winner and someone will get squared away with a free game. So head on over to at GPGC Podcast today and enter. So, guys, tons of news, and big news, too. Potentially big news, at least. Some of these I will preface saying take it with a grain of salt, even though I feel pretty reliable with these certain outlets, sources. So, but I will still say, at least starting out here, the big one, take this one with a grain of salt, because nothing obviously has been official by Microsoft yet, but it is pretty interesting now that we do have some potential hard facts. So, right now, coming out of Windows Central by Jez Corden, inside the target specs of the next Xbox, Project Scarlett, which includes Anaconda and Lockhart. So, this is from, like I said, Windows Central. Make sure you go over there. Link in the description as always. Go over there. Give Jez a click. Because I kind of there wasn't a lot of info I could cut out of this one. So, this might be like a whole read here. So, buckle in. This one's kind of long. But anyways, Microsoft is gearing up to reveal a two-pronged attack for next-gen consoles, complete with a more affordable SKU dubbed Lockhart and a more beastly premium SKU, codenamed Anaconda. We have no idea what the next-gen consoles will look like or be officially named when the time comes, but we do now have a credible idea of what these spec systems are targeting. We believe the information we've received below from multiple sources, but as always, take these rumors with a pinch of salt until we get official confirmation from Microsoft itself. Plans can and do change as we move towards production. Xbox Scarlett is due to launch in 2020 in time for the holiday season. In the 2019 reveal video, Xbox Cloud architect Kareem Chowdhury said Scarlett could eat monsters for breakfast, in quotes. And indeed, Anaconda looks as though it will be able to. According to several sources familiar with Microsoft plan, Anaconda is targeting around 12 teraflops of computing power, compared to the Xbox One X 6 teraflops and the Xbox One S's 1.4. That is a pretty hefty jump. Lockhart, conversely, will port around 4 teraflops, and according to marketing materials we've seen previously, it is being positioned as the most affordable entry point to next-gen experiences. It's important to note, however, that teraflops don't really tell the entire story of next-gen systems, owing to piles of custom tech Microsoft is planning to bake into these consoles. For example, Microsoft already spoke about how ray tracing will be a factor in next-gen systems, and while Lockhart has less raw power than the X, it will have capabilities that elevate it further than the X in various ways. Both Lockhart and Anaconda reportedly sport 8 CPU cores targeting around 3.5 GHz, with Anaconda reaching a bit higher per core than Lockhart. The relatively modest increase in clock speed over the previous gen systems may seem mild, but vast improvements to caching, new silicon architecture, and other general bespoke proprietary optimizations will see Anaconda perform anywhere up to 4 to 5 times better than the Xbox One X if targets are met. We're told that at least Anaconda will guarantee 13 gigabytes of RAM for games, with 3 gigabytes on the OS, a total of 16 gigabytes. The X, by comparison, offered a maximum, in quotes, of 9 gigabytes for games, which often varied based on what the OS was doing. Microsoft also said in its reveal video that the SSD could be used to throw in virtual RAM as necessary. Speaking of which, one huge factor or focus area for Lockhart and Anaconda is on the NVMe SSD proprietary tech, which dramatically decreases load speeds, nigh on eliminating loading completely. Games with load times anywhere up to a minute will be reduced to mere seconds as a result of these SSDs, and the inclusion of Project xCloud across all Xbox systems will allow you to start gaming via streaming while waiting for games to download locally. Next Gen is all about saving time, increasing read speeds by gigabytes per second, while also providing cutting-edge visuals that will elevate games to all new heights. We've been told that many games will function across generations. Next-gen features such as ray tracing for dynamic reflections and the like will most probably be exclusive to Lockhart and Anaconda, requiring new APIs that come as part of the game's core OS, which is also part of the Windows Core OS effort we've been covering. That said, Scarlett will be able to run all previous gen games that are available on Xbox One today, including backwards compatible titles, as Microsoft has already announced. Similarly to the Xbox One X, games with unlocked frame rates and dynamic resolution will perform better on Scarlett, once again, being able to take advantage of the improved hardware. For example, Monster Hunter World struggles to maintain 60 frames per second on the Xbox One X, even in its performance mode. Even without an update, it should manage to hit its target FPS without an issue on Scarlett. Games will also be able to take advantage of the increased SSD load speeds on the newer consoles as well, without needing an update. So, after all that fucking nerd shit.
It's like my prediction was correct, and I said that Scarlett was going to have 12.
Yeah, you did.
But
you did. You fucking
sniper. Go ahead. Just carry on. Didn't happen.
So, after learning last week from Kotaku's Jason Schreier that Microsoft is in fact moving forward with plans to release the entry-level version of Xbox's next-gen system, which was codenamed Lockhart, that we once thought was no more, it's interesting to see such a wave of leaked specs come out, and the main hefty system, Project Scarlett, on top of that, which is codenamed Anaconda. So, first off, what do we think about Microsoft approaching next gen with 2 separate SKUs right off the bat? We've seen the model work before with all 3 major console manufacturers having multiple tiers of hardware out now, but never launching together. I mean, Xbox 360 had the one with the hard drive and the one without being the arcade, but it's the same system that they're putting out. We're talking 2 different tiers of hardware that are going out in terms of performance. Does this unnecessarily split the consumer base for Xbox right from the get-go, or is it giving customers more options, just get them into the Xbox ecosystem, just getting them into the Xbox ecosystem, never a bad thing?
I think if we're gonna look at a situation where you're gonna give people 2 different tiers of pricing specifically, I think it's best for Xbox, because you're going to avoid the problem where you're going to have a $700 console, like a $600 or $700 console, which I don't know that Scarlett will be that much, but my prediction of Scarlett getting up there to the $700 realm seems a little bit more feasible, with Lockhart potentially coming out also to split it up. So I think for your hardcore enthusiasts, giving them an option like the Xbox One X right off the rip, and Scarlett at a higher price point makes sense. I'll buy Scarlett for $700 if I get to play Infinite and uncapped frames and everything. That's what I'll invest in. And then, you still have the Lockhart for the younger generation, or the people that don't care as much about the graphical experience and they just kind of want a console for sports games. Because let's face it, if you want to play FIFA, NHL, Madden, you have to play it on console. So there's a plenty of gamers out there that fits, or people that like to sit on their couch and lounge, which I know, Travis, you and Adam both are two people that come to mind when it comes to games like that, where you guys both thoroughly enjoy just kicking your feet up and just enjoying your time on a game and just be doing something other than work or anything else in the game. I think that appeasing more the customers in a way with two models is great. I think this is going to be a good thing for Xbox, and I'm excited to buy a Scarlett regardless of the price point, unless it's like $1,000, which they better give me like something crazy like stock in the company for that.
Yeah, I still think there's no way in hell that this system, I'm talking Anaconda, the premium model, is over. I think there's no way it's over $500. I really do. I think 500 is a sweet spot, because they're gonna lose. They always all console manufacturers tend to lose money off consoles because they make the money back in games. But I just can't see, after how they launched last gen, even at the $500 price point, with people being the way that. Now, granted, if they're launching at $500 this time around, they have a much different mindset already, verbatim, even if they're just copy and paste for where they're at right now going into next gen in terms of what their approach to, like, the Xbox brand is, where it's games, best value for gaming. That's already going to set them miles ahead of where they were before, where they're like, oh, it's your all-in-one box. Hey, let's talk about cable TV in this thing. No, shut the fuck up. So like, really, like, that's 2013. Like, if they come out with that again, then really, I mean, pack it up. This is the last generation we'll see Xbox, but it won't happen. But I just think nobody, even with how they would approach that, if it's over $500, people are going to look at that and say, well, fuck, I'll just go get a PC that, if I'm paying $700, half the PCs now at $700 can do VR. I can just go do that. Like, you know what I mean? I just think $500 is that sweet spot. But if they would come out and say $700, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I just don't think it'd sell that well. Like, and that's same with Sony. I don't think it's unheard of, because both these systems are going to be, they're premium models that they put out, whatever the PS5 is, and from what I understand, they're just going with one model. They're not doing the two separate SKUs, but they're going to come out, and they're going to be, from what I've heard and what different people close to the subject has heard, they're not carbon copies, but what they're able to do is basically the same. It's not a similar situation where right now with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, where there is a noticeable difference. One is doing 1440p and one is doing 4K. Like, there's a difference. There's a visible difference that you can see if you really want to get into the minutia of it. But I think it's, part of me says, okay, this is great. Like, it is good. You should be offering, that goes in line with what they've been saying. Like, we want to get the most people in as possible to play on Xbox. We don't care how you play our games. You could play it on a phone. You could play it on the $300 system. You could play it on an Xbox One S. You could play it on Xbox One X. You could play it on a Project Scarlett when it comes out. We don't care. We just want you in here playing our games. But at the same time, I'm going to be worried whenever those people are like, oh, okay, I bought the Lockhart, the entry-level model. And then, 2 years down the road, none of the games that are coming out are going to be able to run on it. Or they're not going to be able to run in a very great manner, where it's like, well, fuck, I should have spent another $200 or $100 to get the Anaconda, the premium model, when I could play everything, and it runs fine. Where I just feel like they may alienate themselves at times. Like, I just think I think this would suit better in, you come out this time next year, you're launching, or in November of next year, you're launching, here's Anaconda, this is the only thing we're launching. Then, holiday 2021, a year later, they're saying, okay, we want to bring more people in, and we're going to do it for $200 less, here's Lockhart. Where, then that gives you another boost to sales on top of that, too. Like, I'm split. I'm really torn. I see both sides of it. Like, I can see it going great, and I could also see it, like, kind of shooting themselves in the foot. So
Right.
I'm kind of torn. Adam, what do you think?
I'll say Mike kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, I might be a dead ringer for the Lockhart just because I'm someone who's probably going to be buying into VR, like a VR ready PC in the next year or so.
True. Yeah.
So having that option is going to be great for me.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, like you said, they don't get a split like software base and a split audience where games are only being made really for one or the other model and the other one's kind of left in the dust. You know, it's equally likely that you see developers targeting the lower end so that they don't miss out on anyone and not taking full advantage of the premium capabilities. That seems about equally as likely to me as them targeting the premium and leaving behind the people who are on the base model.
Yeah.
It's hard because they're trying to make as much money as possible, trying to get as many people on board as possible, but there is always that risk of splitting your audience. I think it's really going to come down to the price, how they determine that.
Yeah. I just that's my biggest worry is that they're going to push both these models, and a lot of people say Christmas next year. There's going to be people who are, you know, the enthusiast end, which is great because it covers all bases, but, you know, little Johnny's mom's going to say, oh, I want to get the new Xbox for my kid. They go to Best Buy on Black Friday to get it, and they're like, oh, I could buy the $500, $600 one, or I could buy this $300 one. Well, does it play it plays all the same games, you know, yada. Okay, I'm going to take that one. And then a year later or whatever, whenever more of the games that are coming out that are taking advantage of the hardware for Scarlett, because what we've seen, like in Mike, you just were even talking about it a few weeks ago on the show, with even though they shouldn't be developing for straight up like, oh, we're developing games for the premium models right now with PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, they should be developing for the base hardware and then building on top of that. But with Modern Warfare, we've seen that it runs like shit on base consoles. So like, I feel like there's going to be a lot of pissed off people who go out and buy that console who aren't educated on what's going on, and then turn around and just say, like, a year later, the kid's going to be like, oh, well, it doesn't play this, and then people are going to be pissed off, and then I just feel like it could be, for short-term game, it may be great, but long-term effect is where I kind of am a little shaky on it. I don't know. But that's just me. Do you guys think, like, and that kind of leads into my next question, I guess. I find that it's going to be hard to beat. I talked about PS5 basically having the same specs, because everything that I've seen so far has kind of led me to believe that. But really, it's going to be hard to beat what Anaconda is pumping out with a lot of those specs, especially having just double the teraflops that the X has right now. Like, that's a hefty processing jump, and PS5 is definitely going to have that too. The biggest things is going to be, at least on my end, it's going to be, you know, you're going to see the ray tracing, and you're going to see the SSD load time, like the load times with actually utilizing SSD storage is going to be crazy. But with those basically being toe-to-toe in terms of power, does an arms race pushing these, like, you know, technical statistics, does an arms race for that on massive performance really matter going into next gen, especially after we've seen what this generation was with the importance of exclusive games and why Sony kicked so much ass this year, even with Microsoft having the most powerful console ever put out right now with Xbox One X, where they keep selling, PS4 keeps selling gangbusters because of all this exclusives. I mean, should that matter for Xbox?
I'm a firm believer that competition breeds excellence. Like, having competition and things of this nature always is the best practice, because, you know, people usually get better because they have competition to challenge them. I don't really think they should even really care about PS5 as much, because I think, you know, the first generation and the second generation of Xbox did a good enough job just being kind of independent and focusing on their own game. And I feel like, you know, with the Xbox One and Kinect, I feel like they tried to get gimmicky to, like, completely dominate the generation. And as you see, you know, it backfired horribly for them. So I'm really hoping that they just kind of focus on, what Xbox wants to do and do what, like, don't really let other manufacturers influence what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Adam, what do you think, man?
I think it's worth talking about at least a little bit because, right, like we've mentioned, a lot of games this gen did not perform very well on base hardware. So there's definitely been room to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Even just with games that were, made in the last 5 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be even more room to grow beyond that to games that are going to be made like that push the specs of this coming generation. Like there's going to be games in the next 5 years that will push these consoles to their limits and they're going to run crappily because they're ambitious technically. So I think it does have its place.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be at the absolute center of the discussion. I think you need to take a holistic view of the console and say, well, we have these goals for technical. We want to be able to do at least this much. We want to have, target these resolutions, these frame rates, this scale of textures and whatnot. Maybe we want to do some technologies like ray tracing, maybe some, I don't know, maybe PS5 will say we want to do some VR. So they'll have some goals to do there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you're right. Last generation, it was the games that really mattered.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. Speaking of games, though, let's move on to our next news article. And this one's a big one, man. The long-rumored Resident Evil 3 remake, basically one of the worst-kept secrets in gaming, is confirmed. And we got a release date, too. This comes from Chris Priestman over at IGN. As always, like I said, link in the description. Go over there and give Chris a click. Capcom announced its remake of Resident Evil 3 for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Steam with a reveal trailer during the State of Play. It will be available on April 3rd, 2020. As with this year's remake of Resident Evil 2, the third game in the series has been reimagined with the over-the-shoulder perspective, allowing you to scan all the details of the environments brought to life with the RE engine. You play as Jill Valentine, who arrives in Raccoon City a few days before Leon and Claire do in Resident Evil 2. She faces an even greater threat than the previous game's Tyrant, though, as the more intelligent bioweapon known as the Nemesis tries to hunt her down as she tackles the zombie outbreak plaguing the city. Jill also has to deal with the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, or UBCS, which is a private military force that started the outbreak. Fortunately, one of them, called Carlos Oliveira, is looking to help out survivors, and so he teams up with Jill. With a Resident Evil 3 remake, while a Resident Evil 3 remake isn't a surprise, the fact that it's actually the campaign portion of the previously announced 1v4 asymmetrical multiplayer take on the series Project Resistance wasn't expected. Project Resistance has 4 survivors trying to outlast the tricks and traps of a 5th player, the Mastermind, who wins by killing the survivors off. For more details, check out Project Resistance preview. So, side note to this too, I also wanted to add, kind of funny is Imran Khan, who was the former senior editor at Game Informer, talked a bit of what he knew regarding the development of this game and its quote-unquote quick turnaround that's kind of pretty interesting. So this is a quote from him today earlier. Talking with people who were close to Capcom, from what I understand, the game, RE3, and Resident Evil 2 were originally part of one package, but it was too much work, the games were getting delayed, Resident Evil 2 was supposed to release a year earlier than it did, so they split them up. That's why this thing is coming so quickly. I think that it has been worked on for about 3 years or so. So it was part of the original package originally. So that's why they're combining it with Project Resistance, which was initially another game that Capcom picked up, then put the Resident Evil license on. Then they were like, well, we need to justify this game coming so soon and stuff. So they're putting it together, but I don't think people are going to complain. People want more Resident Evil after the past few releases. So personally, I haven't played RE3. I'm for sure going to play the remake because I have complete blind faith in Capcom at this point with Resident Evil as both a dev and a publisher because of how well they've been treating the series since how shitty 6 was. I didn't play 6. I played 5, loved 5. 6 I stayed away from because it got like a 3 out of 10 on most places.
That's not good.
No, and I'll be honest, like Capcom took its fucking lumps, went back to the drawing board, and came back with the RE7 and just blew it out of the fucking water, which is still, I think, one of my favorite horror games of all time, if not possibly my favorite. But between that and RE2, I'm at this point, yeah, whatever. Just give me RE3. I'm gonna play it, and I'm sure I'm gonna love it because it's more RE and it's more classic RE. So, but being structurally different from RE2 in terms of RE2 having the dual campaigns offered in Leon and Claire, do you think that sales will carry this game like RE2, even though it's technically down a campaign, or does the resistance mode justify a full $60 price tag?
Adam, you can go first this time. I've been
Do
going
I
first
think it
every time.
justifies $60?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, probably. Just because of, I mean, it might follow the same beats, it might have similar gameplay and all that, but like, it still had to be produced. It still probably had a lot of expensive work that went into it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably still going to have the quality of what you would expect for a full price retail game. So like, yeah, I think remakes are still fair game for full price.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I share the same mindset as you, that it's, even though in terms of looking at it from a distance, you're saying, oh, well, maybe somebody who isn't as tuned into game development and the process of making a game and how much it costs, somebody may think, well, $60. Well, the last one had 2 campaigns, and now it doesn't have anything, and what the hell? Like, all it has is one, and this multiplayer mode, I'm not going to play that, or whatever.
I mean, you could.
I get
that would be
I
a
get
fair
that.
thing to say if you're not into
Right.
what it's offering. I just don't think it's like. I don't think it's a bad decision to name $60 as the price tag. There's plenty of $60 games that I'm not interested in. That doesn't mean I think they should be worth less.
100% agree. I mean, I think whatever a developer charges for a game, it's worth, because the amount of money that went into that and the amount of time that went into that, like, realistically, games should probably cost $80, if not more now. Like,
that's true.
That's where we're at this point, because devs are paid less and less, and games are staying the same because of that, because they're worried that people aren't going to pay more than that, and there's going to be a fallout with it. So
that's why you get monetization models like the live service. I mean, that's one reason why you get live services and stuff like that. Other monetization models to pick up the slack.
Yep.
For a pretty inflexible price point that everyone's just kind of settled on. Like, we don't want that to change.
Mm-hmm. Mike, what
production
do you think,
values are only going up. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Mike, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think Resident Evil 3, just because of the quality of game, to me, I believe that it would. I believe that it should be $60. I mean, Resident Evil 2 was good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I get the argument that it's only a remake. Why would they charge full price? It's just a bullshit remake. But like, dude, Resident Evil 2 was sick. For what it's worth. Like, you're right. It had 2 campaigns, but it also had the free like challenge mission thing where you were like timed, and then it had a couple of like free add-ons. Like, it was well worth the $60 price point. And Resident Evil 3, the momentum Capcom's been having from RE7 to RE2 Remake, like, I have full trust in them that they're going to do a good job with Resident Evil 3. So I'll definitely pay $60. I'm going to love to give them my money because they definitely deserve it. Touching on another topic you guys brought up, the $80 price point. It's true, like, the technology and the time spent and the manpower behind games now are generating an $80 price point, which that's hard to argue with. And I agree with Adam that they come up with alternate ways to raise funds, namely microtransactions and in-game skins and things of that nature, to kind of generate their losses. If they're taking a loss on releasing the game at $60, they're going to generate it other ways, right? Well, I'm just concerned that with the $80 price point, like, this game is definitely going to be worth $60. Would me as a consumer love to only pay $30? Absolutely. If they only charge me $30, I would love it. Like, don't get me wrong, I would buy it all day. But I believe they deserve $60. 80 is getting to the point where, like, if I were to buy a game like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, where I played it like for 2 days and I haven't touched it since, and I paid $80, like, 60 is bad enough and the game sucked. $80 would be like straight up egregious, to the point where, like, if a game was a stinker as bad as like Anthem, like, at what point is it going to take for consumers to, like, do a class action lawsuit where it's like, your game is so fucking bad?
Yeah.
Like, how did you charge us $80 and it doesn't work? Like, what do you want us to do? So I would just be weary. Like, I would prefer and I know I've said this, in the first or second episode potentially, that I believe games as a service would be a better like method to go about if they were interested in generating more revenue than the $60 price point.
Hmm.
Charging $20 for the release and then having you buy into seasons seems a lot more feasible. And this is a situation where people might counter my point and be like, hey, they're going to release half-assed games, and they're not going to release full games because they're going to want you to pay for the full game, basically. To
Hmm.
my counter would be like, if I invest $20 into a game and it sucks ass, I'm not going to opt into the seasonal options. I'm not going to spend my money on, buying into these new seasons.
Hmm.
I think it's a way that it'll keep the entry point low for consumers.
Hmm.
However, it will keep the, even if the developers like Halo Reach, they only charge $10 for it. If you bought MCC for $40, you got every single game.
Hmm.
If they charge $20 for a base game, and sure, they could leave out maps or guns or challenges or quests, or say it's an island-based RPG, they could leave out a whole island and then include it in a season. You don't have to release a full game. Like, just make the base game work, make it work well, make the gameplay good, make the story good if you're going to make it a RPG or a campaign type game.
Hmm.
And then, the other parts of the game that you were having trouble coding or you're having bugs with, polish those up and release it as a season for $20. And then, every 3 or 4 months, release another part of the game that you kept unreleased. And I think people would enjoy that a lot more. It would cover your costs a lot better as long as it worked. And I know, it's a dog eat dog world out there. It's tough for developers to stay afloat as it is, but I think this is a good way to keep developers accountable, and it's a good way that consumers could and keep the microtransactions in. Don't make it like EA games where it was like borderline, like you had to pay for microtransactions to even enjoy the game, but keep them in there so hardcore enthusiasts can show their love for you and support you because they want in-game loot and things of that nature. I'm all for that type of system. So I know it's a little bit of an off-topic, offshoot discussion we had there, but that's my mentality behind it all anyway.
So you need to remember that it is our show, and we can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah. Including potentially bankrupting devs because I want them to only charge $20 for their game, but I think they'd make more money in the long run, because I think you would get more fans all their investment off the rip, and then you could set your hooks in them and keep them around for a lot longer than having a $60 stinker like MCC come out and then you lose everybody because nobody wants to trust you because they just spent $60 and the game doesn't work.
Yeah, you do have a point. I mean, you definitely do. I mean, look at all of the free to play games that are coming out.
Yeah, like Smite and League of Legends, both two free to play games that only generate revenue through advertisements, esports, and then their in-game purchases, and people support those games because they're good. You were probably about to say the strategic card games, Hearthstone, Elder Scrolls Legends, those types of games come to mind where people support them just because they love the game and they want to support them. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. So moving on to our next topic, our next news article here, and this one was kind of out of left field. I'll be honest, I never thought I would see the day, at least in this capacity, at least. Let me get into it. Sony's MLB The Show is coming to other game consoles as early as 2021. This comes from Chris Welch over at The Verge. As always, link in the description. Sony's MLB The Show game series, long a beloved PlayStation exclusive among sports fans, is going multi-platform. Sony Interactive Entertainment made the announcement tonight alongside Major League Baseball and the MLB Players Association. The show will arrive on, quote, additional console platforms as early as 2021. So, we might be talking next generation here. By agreeing to take it elsewhere, Sony has secured a multi-year extension for its MLB license. Sony hasn't yet specified which consoles it will develop MLB The Show 2021 for, PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 are obviously coming, but might it be coming to Microsoft's Project Scarlett? Xbox boss Phil Spencer retweeted the news saying, quote, "Great to see the game is coming to more players. Take that as a hint or don't." Spencer regularly tweets industry news even when it doesn't impact Xbox directly, but the main Xbox Twitter account also joined in. So, like I was saying, it's nice to see the MLB simulation license being locked away on Sony's hardware has been really quite a tragedy for many baseball fans who have never owned a PlayStation console before we had MLB 2K. But now that Sony owns that MLB simulation license, the actual, the Madden-esque, NHL-esque version of baseball, they've had that for so long that it's probably, I'm thinking it's been 5 years now? 4 years? No, longer than that. I think it's been 5 years that specifically only the show has had the simulation license, but it's crazy to think that a whole generation really has gone by without anybody being able to play an MLB simulation game outside of PlayStation owners. So,
right,
it's, as someone who's loved the show and has played it for many years on PlayStation hardware, and it's the one sports game that I truly feel gets it right, and there's never really any glaring issues. Like NHL, there's always you'll find glitch goals, you'll find different things like that. Madden, there's always something wonky going with the AI. There's never it's never balanced properly, where the show is always such a polished experience. Granted, because it's always focused on one hardware specific, and that's it, where it could take advantage of that specific hardware, and they have the inner details within it that they can develop for just that and just that in mind. But as someone who has loved it, it truly makes me happy that more people are going to be able to play this. But I never thought I'd see the day where the actual brand, the show, would be going multi-platform. But do you think we'll ever see another major sports franchise be gatekept like the MLB license was for the show? Like, what if Microsoft locked down the Madden franchise for 10 years? I mean, you could only play the newest Madden on Xbox. Would the straight cash payout be worth it to EA to section off a smaller demographic of their consumer base where they're only selling to them? I mean, it'll never happen, but I'm just curious. Like, that's such a major. I mean, baseball's America's pastime. I mean, it's it's one of the biggest sports in the world, and you can only play it on PlayStation. Now going elsewhere, but what if Madden did that? What if NHL did that? Like, I'm just curious. What do you guys think?
I don't think anybody wins when you exclusively hold a game, in particular a sports game, to a certain console. I don't think anybody was benefiting from the fact that MLB The Show was only on PlayStation besides PlayStation. I just don't think it's good for the developers. I don't think it's good for the consumer. I don't see very much positive, besides Microsoft locking down Madden. Who wins in that? Just Madden gets paid a hefty payday for Microsoft. Then they don't make as much money in sales, and then Microsoft sells a ton of consoles. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think games like Fortnite, Call of Duty, going cross-platform across every platform has really opened up developers' eyes, and they see it's really not that big of a deal that everyone gets to play with everybody. It might be a little bit of more legwork when it comes to programming and networking, things of that nature, but I really don't see a benefit to keeping exclusivity of a game like that.
Yeah, I agree. Adam, what do you think?
I don't know that I could add much more there. I mostly agree with what Mike says. I will say this. It's interesting to me that you don't really see a lot of high-profile sports games being made that are outside of Major League play, if that makes sense. Golf is the exception that comes to mind, because you get games like Golfing with Friends and What the Golf and other stuff like that. But you don't see a lot of soccer games that aren't just FIFA. You don't see a lot of football games that aren't just NCAA or NFL or Madden rather. It'd be interesting to see a little bit more experimentation with that. I mean, the game of baseball, I don't think can be restricted very much. It kind of belongs to everybody. So anyone could make a baseball game, but maybe there's not enough demand for there to be a baseball game that's not MLB with all of the players and, the major league play.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious. I really, really would be curious what it like next gen if we see, because my biggest thing too, and it kind of even touches on our first news article that we went over. I'm curious to see what that would look like. What you're talking about, if that would be something approachable when we get to next gen for a system like the Switch, that like with the Switch and where it launched, and at least right now, there's no word on we're getting a Pro model or anything upgraded to it, even like a jump from the original 3DS to the new 3DS, where it had a better processor in it and was able to actually run a lot of the newer games. But where is Switch gonna lie with that going into next gen when you're looking at the Project Scarlett and PS5 probably having carbon cut stats for the most part, technical stats at least, where they're pumping out specs like 12 teraflops or something like that, and the Switch isn't even gonna fucking breathe anywhere close to that. Like, so will we see more games like that can go to the Switch where it's more like What the Golf and more like, hell, Backyard Baseball, not necessarily that license, but like where it isn't a sim necessarily, will more non-traditional sports games come up where we see stuff like almost a Rocket League or something that is a different take on baseball, that is a different take on football coming to the Switch, because the art style may be what is being produced for it may not be as technically demanding as something like a sim game would be.
I don't really have a opinion on the matter other than like I thoroughly enjoy simulation games when I do play sports games, but there are times when I really enjoy like 3-on-3 arcade
Mhm.
or games of that nature. So a game to me, like I don't really have a say in the matter. I think simulation games will last longer than those niche games, but
Mhm.
I think a game like 3-on-3 NHL Arcade would like be spectacular on the Switch, and that would be
Oh
something
my
that like
god.
the NHL should look into, because while sure it's not going to handle NHL 19 or NHL 20,
Mhm.
maybe it'll handle that 3-on-3 arcade that people can just get into and have a fun time on.
Yeah. I would love to see a new 3-on-3 arcade. I mean, that's literally one of my favorite sports games of all time, because it fills that hits pocket and
Oh,
the blitz
I
pocket.
haven't played that in a long time.
Oh my god. Like, I love those non-traditional like arcade I love those non-traditional arcadey sports games that, because it's not, you could have people who, maybe are like Adam, who aren't necessarily big sports fans, but want to play something that is, great for couch co-op and great that you could just jump in and all you have to know is, you got to get the ball in that net, or, where it's like almost Rocket League, where you could still play, have competitive fun with it, but you could also just like hand somebody a controller and it's easy to pick up and you're still getting that same, feel to playing a sports game, while also at the
Right.
same time, it's not simulation, this is what the war saying on this guy, and this is what this guy's batting averages, and you got to watch, he can only hit, curveballs. You don't have to worry about that. You can just pick up a controller, hit the puck in the net. That's it. And you could fucking knock the goalie over. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a lot of fun, and we loved playing 3-player co-op and beating the shit out of the computer in a like Dynasty thing or whatever it was called.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So let's head into our last news article here. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a PS4 timed exclusive until March 2021. This comes from Megan Faraknamesh via The Verge. As always, link in the description. So, the upcoming remake of Final Fantasy VII will only be a PlayStation 4 exclusive for the first year of its release. After March 3rd, 2021, it's likely to move to platforms like the Xbox One and PC. The news was first spotted by Wario64 on Twitter, who posted the game's cover image with the exclusivity noted in the bottom corner. Final Fantasy VII Remake is being broken up into several episodes, with the first one focusing exclusively on Midgar, better known as the game's opening. But Where the original put only a few hours into Midgar, Square Enix has promised an experience that will span 2 Blu-ray discs worth of content. The first installment will be out on March 3rd, 2020. Development has already started on the next game in the series. Once a series closely associated with PlayStation consoles, Final Fantasy has exploded over the years to simultaneous releases across multiple platforms. Most recently, a number of classic Final Fantasy games were announced for Xbox Game Pass. So, like Megan said in there, one would assume that we're going to see Final Fantasy VII Remake on both Xbox One / Project Scarlett and PC and probably PS5 as well at that point, post March 3rd, 2021. So, do you think the sales of Final Fantasy VII Remake will still be strong on the Xbox One when it hits a year after launching on PS4? Or will the trend of poor sales of JRPGs on Microsoft's hardware continue? Because it's just traditionally Microsoft and its systems have never been the go-to place for JRPGs. You're usually seeing that on Nintendo products. You're usually seeing it on Sony products, with the Persona series being closely tied to PlayStation, with games like the Xenoblade Chronicles, things like that. They're closely associated with Nintendo. Microsoft never really has that foot in that market because traditionally the Xbox has never sold well overseas in Japan. So do you think a strong, huge title like Final Fantasy VII that is a JRPG, do you think that'll sell well still on Microsoft's hardware, a year later after its initial launch? Or will the hype of that game kind of just die off at that point?
I'll say I think it's possible that it could still do well, because anyone who started playing the original Final Fantasy VII and may have been loyal to Sony or Square Enix or PlayStation at the time, there's a pretty good chance that they've kind of spread out and moved into other console ecosystems. Like, not everyone who played and enjoyed the original is still just like solely a diehard PS fan. If that makes sense.
No, definitely.
And there's a good chance it'll find new life, outside of that as well. There might be people coming into this game for the first time. Me, personally, I played like 10 minutes, maybe 30, if we're being generous, of the original Final Fantasy VII. So I would consider myself like a newcomer to the remake.
I'm right there with you. This is honestly, to be quite honest, now granted, next year we have such a fucking plethora of games, which actually I want to pull up real quick that I tweeted. It was this morning. Yeah, after seeing whenever RE3 got announced. So this is what just spring 2020 alone looks like now. And this is just major games that are coming out. March 3rd, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Really fucking excited for it. March 20th, Doom Eternal, Animal Crossing. And then also in March, we're getting Half-Life Alyx. They just haven't
Hell
put a
yeah,
solid
baby.
date.
Animal Crossing, best game of March.
Yes.
So, April 3rd, Resident Evil 3 Remake. April 16th, Cyberpunk 2077, which is like going to be heralded as the second coming of Jesus. May 15th, Marvel's Avengers. And then May 29th, The Last of Us Part 2. In a full 2 month time window there, you're getting, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 massive AAA projects that are coming out.
It's weird that these games are being released during tax time versus holiday season. Like back when we were younger, all these huge games would have been coming out in November.
Yeah, I mean it's that trend that you're seeing, that there was a whole, really from January to April maybe at the most, where you never really saw. It was that hangover period of the holiday season where all the massive games came out, the Red Deads, the Call of Duties, the Smash
Halos.
Brothers, the Halos, yeah, where those massive AAA, even quadruple A style games were coming out. Now that people are seeing that, okay, well, more and more people are gaming than ever, that we could still release stuff and we could fill that gap. And really it started with, if you ask me, Monster Hunter World, especially. When was that? Beginning of last year, where it's Capcom's most successful game of all time from a sales standpoint, and it released in January. So people are now seeing oh shit, there's a whole 3 months and nobody's releasing shit. We could own that right there and jump in. People are still willing to go out and buy a $60 game. like it's fine. People buy more than one game, and people are kind of seeing that now. So just wanted to kind of touch on that because looked at it today, like I knew it was going to be swamped, but like it just keeps getting crazier and crazier with more games that are kind of getting pushed back and moved around. But I'm with you, Adam. I'm in the camp that I've never played this game. It was always, when I was younger, I always wanted to play Final Fantasy VII because it was the two cool fucking dudes in video games. Link in Ocarina of Time and Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. Those were the two blonde-haired cool dudes that only cool gamer boys played. Like
C00L dudes.
Exactly.
DOODZ.
Z.
Cool
You have
dude.
to have the Z at the end. So, but I always wanted to play it. And by the time I got a PlayStation 1, the conversation around that had kind of moved on, and the PS2 was really starting to come out at that point because I was a Nintendo kid growing up. So, like, when I finally got a PS2, I played Final Fantasy X. That was really my first, like, Final Fantasy experience was playing 10. And I loved it, but I always wanted to go back and play this. So, I'm really, really, really excited to play this game. That's might be a day one pickup for me, but I think it's such a game, like a legacy game, that so many people, you'll see, it's always in a lot of people's, oh, this is my favorite game of all time, this is the best RPG of all time, yada yada, that I think the legs on it are going to be so long that it's going to sell well enough into even the next generation of systems, especially with how they're setting it up being multi-episode, where Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first one alone is going to be, like they were saying, the regular main story is already going to be 40 hours alone in just the first episode, compared to the original game where they're just blowing this up so much that I think the hype will carry on over. And I personally don't think we're going to see a timed exclusivity like we did with this one with the next episode. I think it'll just be across all platforms, or consoles first, then going to PC a year later or something like that. So, Mike,
I don't
what do you
really
think?
have an opinion on the issue.
Mhm.
Or the situation at hand. I just have derived something from the conversation between the two of you.
Let's see it.
Is this a situation where Xbox is weeb free, if you will?
I was waiting. I thought you were just going to be like, I can now confirm you both are fucking weebs.
Not to be mean, but like, is Xbox weeb free? Are you saying that weebs enjoy the PlayStation? Because the PlayStation's Japanese? Are you jumping to conclusions?
I'm going to Google right now which console is most weeb friendly.
Probably the Switch, because it has Persona and Fire Emblem.
Yeah. Well, you also got
Switch doesn't have Persona, does it?
I thought it does.
It has like an offshoot. It has like a spin-off game for Persona. And Nintendo, the 3DS and stuff has had Persona games, and Shin Megami Tensei or whatever.
Both of them are Weeb City, dude. Come on.
Here,
if you're a Japanese boy.
I will say the Switch has a shit ton of like mid to low tier in terms of production quality, like indie anime style games, like so many.
Well, you want to talk about like handhelds and shit like that? Look at the fucking Vita. All it is just fucking weeb porn, like visual novels. I'm dead serious. That's all that's released on the console anymore. I mean, it's
the PS Vita is the weeb friendly system.
It is the most weebly console.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Fucking the first thing that pops up when you type in which console is most weeb friendly is a fucking post on Reddit that's Nintendo fans are just closet weebs. Jesus Christ, fucking shot to the heart. So
my only serious comment on the matter is, I mean, yeah, maybe like less people are gonna play it on Xbox because people who are truly into that type of game genre with Persona and that already have a PlayStation. You guys have already chronicled that. You guys have talked about that. Mm-hmm. My biggest takeaway from the whole situation is like, again, we're getting back to the main thing that if gamers are going to game and you're going to give them more platforms to game on, then game on. You know what I mean? Like, gamer boys are going to do what gamer boys do. Gamer girls are going to do what gamer girls do. Gamer boy / girl / whatever are going to do whatever they want to do. And if you let them do it on any system they want to do it, that's what they're going to do. And that's good for everybody.
Yeah. I mean,
I want everybody to be able to do everything. I just don't want Halo on PlayStation. Fuck them. We don't get The Last of Us. We don't get other things of that nature. Then fuck them. They don't get Halo Infinite.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I agree with it. I mean, really, play what you want, enjoy what you want. I'm just fucking bagging on people and having fun with it. Like, I like some weeby shit. Like, it's cool. Nobody fucking cares. Do what you want. So.
Oh yeah, I wasn't saying. Yeah, I wasn't being a douche when I was. It was a serious question. I think weebs refer to themselves as weebs at times. So
Yeah, they do.
One of my favorite memes of all time is the one skeleton sneak attacking the other skeleton, and the one who's getting attacked says it's labeled weeb, and the one who's jumping on, or no, the person yelling like, shut the fuck up, weeb, and it's just another weeb attacking him. Like,
Yes.
it's one
There's
of my
a lot of memes of that variety where it's like me,
Super
an
weeb.
anime fan, making fun of anime fans.
Yeah. So, alright guys, before we wrap up here, got a deal of the day that's pretty fucking crazy. So, you can get Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for 5 cents a day if you turn on daily charges. 5 fucking cents, which it sounds like it could be a pain in the ass, which, like, if you're somebody like me, I check my bank statement, like, regularly on my app and stuff like that. Like, you're gonna be probably you possibly could get a phone call from PNC or whoever you have being like, so just a heads up, you're getting rung every single day for something, like, from, like, thinking that somebody's, like, gonna eventually milk, like, a bigger amount from you, but
Yeah.
it sounds like it could be a pain in the ass, but the cost alone is well worth it. It breaks down to $18.25 USD for the whole year. For Game Pass Ultimate, that covers your Xbox Live and Game Pass in general, both on PC and console. So, as of this recording, it's still valid, so go over, check your payment options under your Xbox accounts, management options. Go over there, check that out, because that's a hell of a deal. Like, that's something that you probably...
doing it as we speak.
So, that's definitely something to look into. It should still be valid, but... Guys, that's going to do it for our show, I think. Adam, why don't you tell people where they could talk to you about, anything, really, if you want to talk about anime, weeby shit, anything, I guess.
Send me your fanfics on Twitter at AC_Marshy. It's AC_MARSHY.
And then let me read them after, too. I want to,
Yeah. I'll forward them to the group.
Hot. Mike.
We should do a segment. Can we do like a dramatic reading? If you want your fan fiction read on the show, we can probably make that happen.
If we eventually move to a Patreon format, we're gonna do that, where we do a monthly show. You write in your hottest fan fiction, and we'll have Kyle Pottery. Anyways, Mike, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, just find me where the little blue bird flies at TOYSXLDIER, and also Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier, please.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travis on most internet platforms, and this has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. New episodes of the show drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services, so be sure to subscribe to us on there wherever you get them, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show and video games alike, along with our contests that we are running, including our free game giveaway right now. So, guys, that's going to be it for the show. Thank you so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of this growing community. Game on, play some fucking video games, and we will see you next week.